So, Tana, I realized today before we got on this call that there are only 100 days left in the year 2025. When this podcast comes out, there'll be 98 days left,
Oh, wow.
97 days. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. Like, I'm having a hard time with it a little bit.
Yeah, God, that doesn't even feel like it maths, right? It's like,
I actually I saw a post about it earlier today and I was like, that
is
cannot
that
be
right?
right. So
Is that right?
so then I Googled it and it
Naturally.
is in fact, yes.
Naturally, you fact check. You fact check. Wow, that's a very sobering thought. Yeah, that doesn't quite feel possible, but also makes me feel like, how have I not accomplished half the shit I set out to do this year?
Yes. Same. Like, wait a second. No,
Like, whoa,
I
whoa,
need 6 more months.
can I get an extension?
Yeah.
I'm gonna need approval for an extension for the year of 2025.
Part of me is like, okay, I don't have enough time. The other part of me is like, 2025 has been a bit of a shit show. So, like, let's just,
God, it has been, hasn't it?
yeah.
Jeez. Just been heavy lately.
Yeah.
Just
Hmm.
heavy and like icky. That's why, like, you guys, before we started, I was like, how about an episode about grief?
And I was like, no, I don't think I can do it, Dana. Maybe I can. We don't know exactly where we're going in this episode, guys. So it might end up on grief. I'm just going to take this brief moment to say, welcome to Tana and I's podcast, Enneagram Adventure, where we talk about life, emotions, development, all through the lens of the Enneagram. Tana and I are both IEQ 9 certified coaches, so we use the IEQ 9 as kind of our primary tool in terms of how we work with the Enneagram. Anything you want to add to that before we dive into the last 100 days of the year?
Before I dive into my proposal about an extension, no, maybe just a fresh reminder. As usual, the Enneagram is not about it's less about your behavior, more about your core motivation. So, different than other personality assessments that you may have taken. The goal is to get to the root of why you have the behaviors that you have, and hopefully eventually on your growth journey where they came from, maybe. So I know Holly and I are both continually on that journey, but just that fresh reminder. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we are continually on that journey because I do believe that if you're not growing, you're dying. Sobering as that thought might be. But sometimes I'm also a little bit like, could use a breather.
Yeah. It's easier to not, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to not. So about grief,
And it's like we're talking about grief today. Actually, maybe we will. But we also thought we might talk about center of
grieving,
expression.
grieving my sense of positivity.
You have been a bit on a spiral today.
I have been like a little black rain cloud today.
Yeah. Not a full crash out, as the kids say.
No, I'm not crashing out. Oh my God, I was brushing Keegan's teeth tonight. I was like getting the back ones, and he's like,
Mhm.
Mom, 6'7",
Oh
6'7".
no. No, 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 no.
What? Where do you learn this stuff? He's like,
I'll have
I don't
to
know.
I will have to send you. So there's this creator on TikTok who I stumbled across that showed up how TikTok serves you up things. And he's like, I forget what his thing is, something about being a millennial. But he has started this whole series of videos about millennial slang to like kind of snap back at the alpha, like Gen Alpha's like weird skibbity and like all that stuff. And some of them are so good. I'm just like, I'm 100% here for the millennial slang. My favorite one he's done so far is he's like, when you know somebody doesn't have, like, quite have it, like they're just a little behind, he's like, you gotta tell them, you can tell they didn't carry the one.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's so good. It's
Yeah.
so good. Yeah, that was a little back to reality for me. Like 6'7". Speaking of which, you just turned 7. Let's not. Let's not.
The one thing I will say, so this isn't about grief, but before, like, we're clearly on a rabbit hole. This isn't about the Enneagram. We're like 3 minutes in, already down a rabbit hole. But just really quick, to the point, this is slightly positive, and it made me think of you. I'm not raising kids. I am a millennial trying to heal my childhood trauma, not raising children. But I read a thing about how millennials are the first generation that are trying to heal their own trauma while also raising their own kids. Anyway, made me think of you, and I was like, that's actually like a positive thing for the world.
Say it louder for the people in the back. That's why I'm
Yeah.
curious. Like, what's their trauma gonna be?
Yeah. 6, 7.
Probably me crashing out at bedtime because I'm just like done.
Yeah. Okay.
As
Anyway,
I was trying to get this podcast started, not my 7-year-old going, I need a night gummy. For the parents out there, yes, I give my children melatonin gummies, especially on Monday nights. It's just better for everyone, but mostly me. It's like a quarter of a milligram. It's like mostly lavender and elderberry, okay?
that's totally fine.
And some
Elderberry is
sugar.
good for your immune system. He really just wants it because it's like candy
Yeah.
right before bed.
And
Yeah.
it's a delay. It's like
Mhm.
oh, one more thing. Oh, I need a drink of water. Oh, what's the meaning of life? Oh,
Oh, kid, if we
it's
knew, if we
insane.
knew.
I was on, like speaking of this generation of parents, like I know we're down a rabbit hole and I'll make this really brief. But I was sitting on my couch yesterday. It was my 4-year-old's birthday yesterday. So one of the grandparents FaceTimed us and we're sitting on the couch and I've got one kid on one side and one kid on the other side. So if you can imagine, it's just like 3 heads on the phone, right? My oldest says something. My youngest goes, he just said a naughty word. He just said fuck. Just straight up drops the F bomb. I'm looking at this grandparent and all I can do is put my fingers to my eyes because it's that moment where you're like, don't you dare laugh. Don't you laugh. Don't do it. Don't do it. It was like the timing, like the comedic timing of it all was like just it it was perfect. And yeah, I mother of the year, I'm like, dude, we do not say naughty words. Like effing. All
Mhm.
I need, all I need is him going to daycare dropping the F bomb. That's all I need.
Yep. I actually kind of can't wait for someday for your kids to be old enough to listen to this
Oh my
and
God.
to find this digital footprint.
It's crazy. It's absolutely
Yes.
crazy. I'm just going to be roasting them until the end of time. What was it, the 3rd week of school? I got the first call from the teacher. She's like, hey, he's having a hard time paying attention. I'm like, yeah, he's been in OT since he's been 3.
Yeah.
Would ADHD shock the hell out of me? Absolutely not. I was like, have you tried a fidget?
It's real life. This is real life. Sometimes we're like dead on topic. Other times we can't decide what we want to talk about. So we just talk about life.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Speaking
but
speaking of feelings triad.
yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
I was telling Tana earlier today, I had a call with someone where I was debriefing them on their Enneagram type and going through their coaching companion, whatnot. And we were talking about center of expression. And I realized, I think when we did some of our intro stuff early on in the podcast, we talked about center of expression, but we haven't really talked about it much since then. And sometimes I think it's like a simple concept, and yet there's like so much nuance and there's so
Hmm.
much like opportunity for growth inside the centers of expression that I was like, ah, why don't we talk about that? So we're going to try to talk about that, and we might end up talking about grief, but that's where we're headed in general. And I think a lot about, before we hopped on, Tana and I were chatting a little bit about Suzanne Stabile, but she was one of the like early Enneagram teachers that I listened to talk about center of expression. She sometimes refers to it as center of intelligence. And I've thought a lot about how it shows up in my life in terms of the centers. I am in the head triad or the thinking triad. or the anxiety triad. I don't know. Take your pick. 5, 6, and 7 are in that. And that thinking triad, right? They typically, not everyone, but typically, they really lean heavily into thinking over feeling and action. And that can, one of the things that has always stuck with me as I learned when I was learning about this through Suzanne Stabile's work is that there are times where these head triad numbers can get so caught up in the thinking and the overthinking and the ruminating and the thinking some more and the whatever that they actually will start to mistake their thoughts for their feelings. Like they can't tell the difference. And that just has always stuck with me because I do find there's times when I'm doing my own deep work where I can't tell. I can't tell what I feel, but I have a lot of thoughts about it. I don't know if that makes sense. But
That's interesting. Though, like a core, what is it? The strength. I think it's a strength of that head triad or thinking center, right, is managing fear and uncertainty is the struggle, right? But the strengths are foresight, creativity, and strategic thinking. And I see that a lot in you. Sometimes the managing through fear and uncertainty might feel big some days, but most times I see you respond with like some super creative like thought or idea and then that spins into something else. It's 6 and 7 that are also in that. And I see that in the 6s and 7s in my life too, where like they can think creatively and strategically enough to kind of manage to that struggle with thinking center. I don't know how you
yeah.
feel, how accurate that is, but
Well, I mean, that's like a huge compliment. So I mean, I appreciate you saying that because sometimes it doesn't feel that way in the moment. It sometimes is chaotic or like there are even times where it's unidentifiable in terms of what the actual feeling is that I'm trying to solve for. I'm like, I don't know why. Sometimes I don't totally know why it is that I'm doing what I'm doing. I just am like thinking, trying to think quickly or trying to plan or trying to get ahead. And to your point of it's that overcoming uncertainty. And I think the idea behind all of the centers, and we'll talk about feeling center next, but the idea behind all of the centers is that if you use one more, the like so heavily, you're missing out on all of this other part of life. I think the for me, what can happen is I can literally lose hours in thought where I haven't done anything. I haven't necessarily felt the feelings that need to be felt, right? But I've just lost all of this time thinking about something. Sometimes it is the planning. Sometimes it's like, well, I want to do all of these things. And so I'm thinking about them. And I'm better about it today than I used to be. But I used to get in trouble because I would think about something so much that I could convince myself I did it, even though I didn't actually do it. So there's like strengths and there's like amazing things, but there's also this like if you overutilize that center, there it can create gaps and weaknesses and like stuff like that. I don't know. I think the feeling center, and you can speak to that more because you're in the feeling center, but the feeling center has a similar kind of pattern that happens with them as thinking. It's a little different than action, we'll get to
like
action, but
flipped.
feeling, yeah, where it's flipped, where it's like the feelings are so big and there's so much happening sort of emotionally and physically in how they feel that they lose themselves in those feelings. And I know we've talked about that with 4s in particular, so 2s, 3s, and 4s sit in the feeling triad, or the
Mm-hmm.
heart triad, or the shame triad, take your pick.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, all of those, it's a similar idea to the thinking, like, I get lost in thought, partially due to that being a protection mechanism from being a kid. The feeling center gets lost in the feelings. It's just
Yeah.
like a flipped thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2, 3, and 4 are in the feeling center, if I'm remembering
Yeah.
correctly.
Yes.
I think the biggest things that I'm solving for with that feeling center, usually I'm solving for worth. It's like usually worth, image, identity, those three things kind of like come up depending what I'm experiencing. So I would say like when I am in my growth line of 4, even when I'm using that center, I can feel like I'm like trying to get in touch or solving for like the identity piece of it. Like, who am I? Where did this come from? Right? To your point, the feelings then become the thought. It's like this really murky, and if I spend too much time in one feeling, even though something could be like completely 8 dimensions deep, right? There could be 8 different feelings that I've associated with something that happened. And if I spend too much time in one, it's to your point, like that's gotten me in trouble before because I read a certain situation based off of a feeling and I'm like, that's how it happened. And
Right.
then a person who was next to me the entire time will articulate it completely differently. So that happened more like prior to I would say my work with Brandon or like any growth work that I've done because now I'm aware of what I'm trying to solve for in terms of worth and how that ties in with some of those feelings. But it can be this really difficult thing to convince yourself otherwise because you spent so much time in it that you are convinced like that was the feeling I had because this was the interpretation of that event.
Therefore, it is true.
Therefore it is true. Even with my husband, like I will die on a hill of like, no, like you said this thing and this is what you meant. And he'll be like, I can't, like, I'm telling you, I'm the one who said the thing and that's not what I meant.
I think, again, if just making the like parallel thing with the thought
Mm,
and the feeling triad, right?
yeah.
Thinking it's like I think, therefore I am, and feeling it's I feel, therefore I am. And I have heard fours actually say, I am my feeling. I feel this, therefore I am this. It's like,
Mhm.
well, but maybe not. It's the same story of like, don't believe, for me, it's don't believe everything you think. And in the case of in the feeling center, it could be don't believe everything you feel,
Right.
which is like a hard thing. That's like a hard,
Well, it's a hard thing because that's how
yeah.
you've protected yourself for most of
y-
your life. So if because what I'm struggling, as a 2, I struggle with shame and self-worth. Those are the 2 things that I struggle with. And the way that I reinforce that fear is sometimes through like really unhealthy overuse of my feeling center because it's easy. That's what comes like most readily available. Even if my house is in shambles, right? The shame associated with that is like astronomical. It's completely irrational. In the moment, it is very real. Of like, my house is a disaster, how like everything's a disaster. I feel chaotic. I feel, spin cycle. Therefore, I am chaotic.
right,
Therefore, I am not organized. Therefore, I am a bad mom. Therefore, I am whatever, right?
right,
But it's easier to do that instead of taking a moment and thinking logically that I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old that make 2 messes on top of every one I clean up, right? Like, this is a part of my life. The other thing, I will cripple myself slightly and allow myself to have a shameful feeling about being upset about that, right? Like, I will go as far as to be like, I looked over at a mess yesterday and I was like, I'm going to be sad one day that that's not there for me to clean up because it's more readily available. I didn't want to do the work to like rationalize through that. I just made myself sad and feel shame for being upset with myself. It's fucked up.
Man, there's like something else to unpack in there, but it's the like caught you like catch yourself in the loop and then you're
Yeah.
like, I feel this and now I feel this and now like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, and you and I,
So I solved for the thing, but then I made myself feel shameful.
but it's not, I would tell you it's probably not untrue. And I don't think it's a bad way. I'm not a parent. So like, don't come at me about not being a parent. But like, I don't think it's a bad thing though to like look at something and be like, someday I might wish for this again. I think that can be like a helpful reframe of like be in the about being in the present. So I don't think it's all bad.
What it's
That's maybe off
interesting,
topic of center of expression, but yeah.
what's always kind of like puzzled me though about 3 being in that center is I know a couple of 3s that I could totally see it. Like they feel first and that's the reaction. But I also know some where I'm like, could you have a feeling about it? I can't freaking read you right now. Besides, like, you immediately spin cycling internally about all the things and trying to dish out all the logical stuff instead of moving through the feeling.
I think threes, well, every triad has like their contradicted number, or sorry, every center has their contradicted number. And in in the thinking triad, it's sixes. In the feeling triad, it's threes, to Tana's point there. And the and yes, I agree. There are some threes that they lead with feeling, and then there are other threes that just try to like shove that shit down in there and like don't let it
Mhm.
out. I think the big thing I notice is that in threes that don't always lead with feeling, one of their tells though can be that they'll say things that sound like action oriented numbers a little bit, but it'll be, well, my gut tells me, my gut says, but it's an acknowledgement of the body feeling that they're having.
Interesting.
So they're still leading with feeling, they're just not expressing it in the more typical way of feeling language.
Got it.
Yeah. That is one thing I've noted. Not all threes, but some threes, particularly male threes.
Interesting.
Not to make it at all about gender, because it doesn't matter, but it's just something I've noticed, and I think that's probably a little societal too around the it's not okay for men to have feelings in the same way.
Well, we both know a 3 that I feel like is very aware of when he has those moments. Probably one of the more self-aware male 3s that I know. And he definitely leads with emotion, but he's very aware of like when and where that is at all times. It's interesting because I know, well, I guess it's mostly in a professional setting where I've seen female 3s just like shove that down so deep.
And just do their best to ignore it because they want to win. And if they're emotional, they might not get to win. It might take something away from the success.
Interesting.
I don't know. Any three out there who wants to like counter me on that, let's chat about it. But I think there is like a, for women who are threes who want to be highly successful, those emotions get in the way.
But
Not
I was,
actually threes. Yeah, not actually. But yeah.
that's what I was thinking is like, because emotions are generally feminine, right? Unless it's
Yep.
anger, which is a societal stereotype that everyone should snap out of. Me, feeling center. Feelings are okay, guys. They're okay.
We're pushing back on all kinds of societal stuff here, and I think that's one of the gifts from the Enneagram is like, why the heck not? Like, let's push back on some of that. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right. I would be interested to hear Hector talk about this too from a feeling center perspective. So, Hector, if you're
Oh, I just
listening,
have to,
comment.
yeah, he 100% is. He left comments on the last one, by the way, which I have to share with you. I'm so sorry, everyone else. If you have not listened to our episode with Hector, go back. I forget what number episode it is, but Hector is an Enneagram 4. He was on the pod a few episodes ago. He is one of our favorite listeners and guests, but he did comment on the last one. particularly about our commune and the chickens. And he says that he does, in fact, know how to raise chickens and he has driven a tractor before. He sent me pictures, showed me the receipts. So, like, when we started our
Perfect.
commune, Hector's covering the chickens.
Chickens, any tractor work. Got it. Done.
Yes.
I still have yet to understand what I could contribute to this commune besides my feelings. I'll figure it out.
Well,
Figure it
yeah,
out.
we'll get there.
We'll get there. I make really good chili.
There. You can cook. You and Aaron cooks.
I'll be Aaron's sous chef. How about that?
You might have to fight Danny for that, but yeah.
Yeah, chef. Yeah, chef.
Okay,
Yeah.
anyway. So back to feeling center.
So, fours, I mean, this seems like very readily available to them, right? From a feeling center perspective, but they get their identity from being special, unique, like different characters than everybody around them. And they might feel things and identify that they feel things deeper than others. And that's kind of like why I'm unique, is because I feel this so strongly. So for them, and I can say this if I'm thinking back to like younger for me, sometimes kind of getting in that battle of like, how can I spin this positively is helpful, but it's through that thinking vein. Like, how can I separate this for a moment and think about this logically? Which is not to say like any one center is bad, right? Like thinking, feeling, gut, like they're all a part of how we can be more balanced human beings. It's just like living in it
It's
is
getting
what,
stuck there. Yeah.
and
Over reliance.
that might be harder for a four. I would be interested to hear. Maybe Hector can comment and let us know if it's harder for him to get out of feeling language or feeling thoughts and into something more logical or
Yeah.
intuitive.
Or to act, or even just to move to action.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's might be a good transition, at least to cover the action gut anger center, which is 8, 9, and 1. And from a center of expression standpoint, we call it the action center. Sometimes you'll hear it called the gut center. But these are folks who tend to move to action. And the person I was talking about earlier, where we were talking about center of expression, it was so interesting in his coaching companion, the profile between feeling and action was really close. Thinking was lower, but action and feeling were really close. And I was talking about it, and he talked about, though, how he has brought his feeling center up over throughout his career, throughout whatever. But he used to be more of a hard driving action. Now, I share that because we're going to get to this idea of balancing these centers. But he talked about how he learned early in his career that he was sort of running people over with his let's go, like, move with me now. I have this vision for the future and we have to go get it. And that he was just leaving people behind. And it was actually like not, it was it could be detrimental. But I think that can happen in those action centered numbers, is they can be such movers, particularly eights. They can be such movers that it can be intimidating for people around them, or people around them can misinterpret their desire for action.
The note I took on a podcast about this says that like their core themes are anger, instinct, and control in that center. That core struggle is like managing the anger, expressed, repressed, or internalized, I think, is how I remember articulating it. So
Mhm.
the solve is like that anger. But they have this like really, all three of those numbers have this really awesome instinct for what is right or what is safe.
And just yeah, what is right, it also to the point of what is fair,
Mhm.
what is just. The person I talked to today very much talked about his trigger around things being fair, which stands out in that action triad or action center.
Yeah, I would tell you it's just like this in living with someone who lives in this center of expression for 99.9% of their day. Almost using that anger as fuel to get to the action is how I notice it in my husband, who's an 8. He uses that as like the gas that gets him to the action for correction for what is unjust, or because I think that it prevents him from moving to the feeling center.
And
So,
depending on what you do for work,
right.
there could be a benefit for you to that.
Yep.
But then you gotta deal with that feeling center someplace.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But they do just have a 9 that we both know. She has like just this intuition of like, oh, we should do this, this, and this to try to
Mhm.
like get to this solve for this problem. And she's so action oriented that way. And she just like kind of knows that shit. I can bring her, like typical me, to talking out loud at her. And I'm like, I'm trying to I'm trying to understand this and this. I feel like they're related, but I don't know. She's like, oh yeah, let me, we could do this. We could build this spreadsheet, and then we could look at it like this, and it's this really pretty picture, and like we're just gonna plug that in, and it's all gonna tie together. I'm like, yeah, yeah, fuck, for sure.
Per-
I don't,
yeah. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Yes.
but it's like
Yes.
that intuition for the like, let's keep it moving, let's solve it. Something I'm pretty jealous of, but I do notice that I move to that in stress for sure. Like that 8 comes out, and it's literally just like, I don't have time to feel. I'm just gonna do, and then
Right.
I'll talk to you and feel about it later.
Well, and I think there is something to the like action can get you out of if you're stuck in thinking, if you're stuck in feeling, it is the action that moves you out of that. So if you're not an action oriented number, the action will move you out of this stuckness. That's one of the things, right, where they talk about like if you're stuck thinking about something, go for a walk. Or if you're stuck feeling about it's that same idea, right? Like move, there's an action to that. You'll feel or you'll think differently after you do that. The downside for action oriented numbers, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, but can be that they're acting, acting, acting. They never slow down to think, or they never slow down to feel. And then we start to have a different set of issues. And this is why I personally think the discussion around centers is interesting because there is not one that's better than another. You need all three to like live a full life. If you over index into one, no matter which one it is, you're going to miss out on something, or you're going to inadvertently hurt people, or like there something in your life is going to be out of whack if you're indexing really heavily into only the one that you're most comfortable with.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just another opportunity to grow.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this with a risk that he's gonna hear it, but he listens, but not like to full episodes. But my husband, I will like, if I'm just missing kind of like seeing the other centers, I'll like present to him like a mild problem in my life and be like, I need you to tell me like how to think about this. And what I notice is like sometimes if it's not directly tied to him, he will acknowledge the feeling and the problem. And it's just nice to fucking see sometimes.
I had this thought earlier today when we were talking. So earlier today, Tana and I had this a discussion again about how we're all addicted to our own suffering, our own pain. But I was thinking about that a little bit too, and about how it can be so easy, and to the point of even asking your husband, it can be so easy and so clear to us to look at somebody else's life and what they should, could be doing. Oh no, I see it. I see exactly what's happening and how right. So you just described like this thing where it helps you then see the side of your husband you don't always get to see. But also there is I don't know what it is, but that is so much easier to like look outside yourself and be like, "Oh, I can see the road right in
Mhm.
front of you. Here's the thing." But then when you have to look at yourself, all of a sudden it's like headlights are off, don't got a map, right? Like I don't know where I'm going. What are we
Yeah.
doing here? Yeah.
It's just very foggy. Like and I
Yeah.
know enough about myself for some of these situations I present to him that I like can't get out of the feeling. So I'm like, I need him to just logic the shit out of this problem. So I can like separate myself from it a little bit because it sounds so simple when other people say it because they haven't spent the last however long ruminating and whatever shit it is that creates the fog where you can't see the forest through the trees. But it's really refreshing. But also, when people do that for me, it does get me in a better headspace. I also like to fix shit for people, right? So it's helpful for people to come to me and be like, "How would you solve this problem?" I do not appreciate an asshole. So like don't ask me for advice if you're not gonna take it or a piece of it. At least at the end, be like, I just wanted to snap you out of it. So I was doing you a favor. Be like, oh, that's fine. Gucci. Okay. I forgot to say this back when we were talking about thinking center, but the way that I visualize you, like when I bring you a problem, is that I just gave you a Rubik's Cube that is all jacked up and you're like one of those people that can like solve them really fast. Those like the competition people.
The confident I cannot, but
And
thank
you
you for
like
that.
and you
Yeah.
like look at it for a half a second and then you like flip around three more and then you look at it again and you flip around three more and you're like this. I'm like, yeah, shit.
I feel like that needs like an AI image or something. Yeah, I actually cannot solve a Rubik's cube that quickly, but thank you. Thank you.
And to be
But I
fair,
do
my
think it's
problems
so
are way less complex.
I do think though in this idea of like and to go off of a little bit of what we're talking about here too in terms of the centers is I often try to like bring my when I find myself in this like, well, this must be such and such, like this is the path, like this is the thing that I think solves the problem, which it doesn't always, but sometimes. I think sometimes like today when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, shoot, like what should you be doing in your own life, right? Like how can you use this situation where you're looking at this solving this problem and like basically be a mirror to solve a problem for yourself? I don't know if that's making sense, but I've been trying to put more of that lens on it because it's like so easy to get lost in the dark of like your own making.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still at the stage of like have if I'm that wrapped up, I have to like physically separate. So I have to go for a walk or I have to like
Yeah.
go somewhere to separate from the space that I've felt the feeling in. And then sometimes
What's
it
your
becomes more clear.
do you know what your second highest center is? Thinking.
Hmm.
So you and I are the same but flipped because mine's thinking then feeling.
Yeah.
And I used to describe this when I would teach the Enneagram, where I would talk about getting caught in the thinking feeling loop. And like you need, then if you get caught in that loop, like I have a feeling and now I'm thinking about the feeling and now I'm having all these thoughts and now I have a feeling because I'm thinking so like, right. And you get in that loop, then you have to have an action to get out of it. Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
not another option. Yeah.
Oh God, been there way too many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
But then it's like that's when your problems create problems to feel so overwhelmed when I get in that space. Those are the days where I like just want to sit down with a notebook and like write a list of shit that I have to action in order to solve some of those things.
Let's talk a little bit about balancing the centers before we're, out of time here today. The because I think that's like and I touched on it earlier. I think that's the biggest gift inside learning about the centers is like starting to, in my case, think about how do you bring balance to those?
You bring up a really good point because just even how you said it, like thinking about how to get balance, it's a feeling for me of
Right.
how to get balance because I'm getting out of the feeling and moving into either a thought And it's like a very physical thing that happens for me. The people that I know that live in that action center, so eights, nines, and ones, seem to have the hardest time moving to feeling. But that's just like all of the personal cases that
Yeah.
I know. And typically it starts with identifying anger as a feeling. And that's like the
Yes.
path to them getting there, because then they can experience a different one. But just to like kind of capitalize on that point, just the way you said it, think about how to move through. It's a feel about how to move through for me.
Yeah. And I would guess people who are high in action are probably like making plans.
Hmm.
It's how do they take the actions to balance it? Well, I'm gonna go meditate or I'm gonna whatever, right? It's gonna be
Hmm.
about taking action, which proves this whole point about the overuse of each of these centers. I was listening to this uh, podcast with this woman where she was talking about like again, like I don't want any weird messages about this, but she the thing
Here's
she was
my
talking about was
number.
like she was talking about dancing by yourself in front of a mirror and like connecting to your body and how terribly uncomfortable this is for most people and that they will quit like right away because it's so uncomfortable to see themselves dancing in a mirror. But what she was talking about, and it would be interesting for me based on you being high in feeling, but she talked about in women in particular that everything in their life is like from the chest up. Everything that happens is from here up. So they're like not connected into like their hips or like other parts of their body because they live their whole life from like the center of their chest to their head. And she's like, the idea behind this thing, right, is like that you need to get into your body and you need to see yourself get into your body to like change this. The long term goal is that you can like get yourself to do this naked,
Damn.
which let's just
Okay.
talk about like, yeah, like just the thought of that makes me like a little cringe, like,
Yeah, I'm definitely
but
not doing that anytime soon, but I will work towards
right.
whatever I need to. Well, that makes sense. I mean, so I was talking about my oldest son a little bit ago. It wouldn't surprise me if he has ADHD. So he like is a sensory seeker. So I've also read some things on kids related to interoception. So it's similar to like connecting the feeling with like where your body is in space. And that's why like a fidget is helpful, because you're like feeling your body in space. That's why for some kids, like if they have more like autism spectrum disorder and stuff like that, there's swings. There's like it's you're getting information from that body feeling that's happening. I mean, it makes complete sense, because if you've numbed yourself out mentally,
Yep.
emotionally, physically, to the point where you can't even understand where, like, what that looks like, or even be comfortable, like, to see what it looks like, they're completely dissimilar, in my opinion. But
No. Yeah.
all I know is like my own child's situation for that. And it's helpful for him to have like physical stimulation if he needs to be sitting still for a long period of time.
I still am like a super fidgeter. It
Yeah.
does make me curious about like some of your like, is he a five
Mm-hmm.
sort of things. 'Cause when I think back to being a kid, I do think about their like I was very whatever. I just said it, I still am very fidgety. Like I can't sit still for a freaking hour podcast. Anybody who watches this on YouTube knows that I'm like moving around up and down, changing like where I put my all the time. All the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I'm the same way. I have like little magnetic, like, things that I fidget with when I work. If I'm thinking, if
Yeah.
I'm deep in thought, I have these like little magnetic things that I just roll around in my hand. It used to be silly putty, like when I was just kind of getting into like a working environment. I would get those little eggs of silly putty and I would knead that thing until it was brown. and then I'd have to throw it away and get a new one. But it's interesting, right? Because it's like, why do I need that? Like to
Yeah.
think or to
Hmm.
act. And it's like it could be connected to my feeling center because I am like touching and like physically feeling something
Yeah. Yep.
if we want to reach way out
Maybe.
there.
I don't know. There we could rabbit hole on some science about that. Maybe there's a listener who's like, yes, there's science behind that.
But I think it's just finding a tool or a trick that works for you to like kind of snap yourself out of what's comfortable,
Right.
getting
Yeah.
curious about what do I know for sure.
And how to develop the like what are the things that you need to develop
Mm-hmm.
whatever your low center is?
Yep.
How
Yep.
do you bring balance so that you get to experience all of life and live the life that's, I don't know, I hate to say this, but live your best life, right? You need all of these things to
Mm-hmm.
to have like a fully authentic
Mm-hmm.
human experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think
Well,
like whether it be through the work or through age or like some combination of the two, that kind of I don't really give a shit attitude that comes sometimes
mhm.
with either of those things, like throwing caution to the wind a little bit, makes it easier to go back and forth between the three.
I think there is some of that. I do think age has something to do with that particular. I don't know about in men. I can't speak to that. I do think so in women. And as more research comes out about perimenopause and menopause
Hmm.
and like the hormones associated with that, and there is something to that, I guess, that's starting to come out, right? Of like when you start to lose the hormones that have to do with procreation, there's some stuff that shifts where all of a sudden you don't give a shit as much. And I mean, I don't know if that's true for everyone. There's so many things though, like I look back and I think, dang, if I could have learned this earlier, it would have made such a difference. I don't know. You're enough younger than me. You are learning some of these things younger. I'll be curious. Like when you get to 40, if it's different for you.
We'll see. You're stuck with me now.
Yeah. Maybe so. I was having this like reflection. I've just like been very reflective lately. This is my maybe that's what the theme of this should have been. But I was listening to there's a podcast I listen to about triathlon that I have been a fan of since very early on, like when they first started out. And it's these four guys that just like shoot the shit about triathlon every week. They're entertaining, and over time, their production value's gotten better. They've actually gotten real mics that used to just record into their phones with
Hmm.
each other, and it sounded terrible. But anyway, I had this realization on one of the podcasts of theirs that came out just recently where they were like, "Yeah, we've been doing this for 4 years now." And I was like, "Oh shit."
Dude,
Like, okay. This is like a commitment.
in it
Yep, we're in it. And we appreciate all the day one listeners that are down for the ride with us. Yeah.
and down for the rabbit hole. Oh,
Or whatever
this,
we got going on.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's Flora.
There's Flora. Are you coming up here? Yeah.
It's like,
Yep,
hell
she is.
yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah. That's an open
Yeah,
invitation.
it is. She's a clean Flora. Yesterday she rolled in something gross, had to get a bath.
Oh boy. Come on, girl. You don't
Yeah,
need to be
still a
doing
dog.
that. Oh, she's the cutest.
Litter.
Listen, I was just thinking, Holly knows this that I like have this thing of like I have a thought and then somebody says something and I don't believe that I am intuitive, but I believe that like thoughts pop in my head for a reason. I was just letting the dog out last night and I thought to myself, I'm like, God damn, like when we get another dog, it would be so nice if he could just like teach that dog that we just like at 9:45 every night, we go out here, we do our thing, we come back in, we go to bed, we don't wake up.
Yes,
I'm
they do say
telling
that. You
you.
should get a puppy when you have an older dog because the older dog helps teach the puppy.
God, he's such a stressed out old man. I'd hate to add to his stress.
He needs to educate his successor.
Right? Exactly. Well, this
All
was
right.
fun.
It was. This was good. And we didn't talk about grief. We made it without talking
We
about
didn't,
grief.
but we do have to grieve something, maybe, that I,
Maybe.
right after I officially signed up for the half marathon, guys, I got a stress fracture in my foot.
Yeah, we do have to grieve that.
We
Although
have to,
maybe there's a chance that you'll be okay by the race, baby.
there's a chance. Saying there's a chance. I go in for an x-ray in a couple days. We'll see how she's doing.
Fingers, toes, all the appendages crossed.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Any
This was good.
closing?
If you hung on to the end, I got no closing. I was just gonna say if you hung on to the end, we appreciate you. Please like, share,
Yeah.
comment, subscribe. Let us know if you want to be a guest. Casey, anybody who's on our Instagram saw Casey recently pop up in our stories. Casey is a friend of mine who is Enneagram 8, and she is down to be on the podcast. So we got to get that scheduled.
Fun. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. See y'all on day 98.
Yes, on day 98. That's when this will come out. And yeah, we'll see what we come up with for next week.
Cool. See ya.
All right. Talk to you later.